Buy now, pay later has been taking the world by storm over the last few years, allowing customers to pay less upfront, get their items right away, and then pay over time with no interest seems great, but what's the catch? Well, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Okay, so I might have worked that line into this video so that I could convince Dennis that we should make my favorite sandwich, but there seriously is more to this whole buy now, pay later thing. And even though it seems like it might be a new concept, it's actually been around for a long time, since the 19th century, back when it was called installment plans. You might remember seeing those old infomercials when you were a kid where they were advertising for workout equipment or basically anything, where you could get something for $100 or for 4 installments of $24.99. So this is essentially history repeating itself, where they're taking a concept, repackaging and reintroducing it as a solution to help you buy things in a more affordable way, even though you're really spending either the exact same amount of money or potentially even more. Not only is this concept coming back up for air, but it's also growing really, really quickly. It's expected to hit $100 billion in 2021 after only moving from $20 billion to $24 billion the year before. On top of that, it's also projected that 30% of the total e-commerce spend is going to be by BNPL by 2025.
Okay, so BNPL is growing in popularity amongst millennials and Gen Zs. I was literally reading this one report that was saying that amongst US consumers, specifically the younger ones, they tend to worry more about material goods instead of focusing on their future, that kind of planning. And they also like to break up costs because it feels smaller. We posted a TikTok recently that's about to hit 1 million views, and it was all about lifestyle creep, not spending your money mindlessly. And I think what was really interesting to see in the comments was other people's takeaway. We got comments like, life's too short to be saving that much money. I'm not gonna deprive myself until I'm old. And what's interesting is that there is room to do both, right? But it's almost this fear around actually having to think about your future that's almost off-putting for a lot of people. Now, something else to keep in mind is that buying now and paying later already exists today on a lot of the larger purchases that we buy on the regular. Remember how you got that $1,000 phone for $0 as long as you agree to pay $100 a month for 2 years? That's paying in installments and getting it now. Also, even if we look at buying a car, right? A lot of people don't buy their cars outright. Instead, you're paying smaller amounts and you're on some sort of long-term payment plan where hopefully you're gonna be paying it off, in the long term. And that's exactly what buy now, pay later is. This movement is basically bringing what we already do for expensive items into play for pretty much any purchase, no matter how small.
Before we dive into the downsides of buy now, pay later for the consumers, let's first take a second to focus on what's going on behind the scenes. Why would stores even sign up for their customers to pay later? And how do the BNPL companies like Afterpay and Affirm actually make money off of you, especially if you're supposedly paying no interest, just the amount that the item was initially worth? Let's do a really high-level breakdown to start. So let's say that you're going to a checkout, whether that's virtually or in person, and you decide to use the buy now, pay later option for a $500 purchase. So instead of paying $500 today, you're actually going to pay $100 5 times over the next few months or weeks. In this case, let's say a buy now, pay later company paid a retailer $475 to take over that purchase. Now that's a discount on the $500, but the retailer gets paid immediately. And now the buy now, pay later company becomes the party that's waiting for the customer to pay back the additional $400 because they already paid $100 up front. Now in this scenario, the buy now, pay later company made a profit. They got $500 paid to them and only had to pay $475 for that. And the retailer actually makes a profit because they got paid $475. So where we're at now is that the customer got to buy now, pay later with no interest. The buy now, pay later company got a sizable return, but what about the retailer? Well, like I said before, they made less money than they could have without this option, so why would they ever sign up for it? We should also factor in that the buy now, pay later companies are taking anywhere from 4 to 6% plus of the purchase for themselves. Now, if we compare that to credit cards, they only take about 2 to 3% of the purchase versus cash and debit that take 0%. A quick side note is that this is exactly why stores haven't been a fan of credit cards for years to begin with. They make less on purchases if you pay with a credit card compared to cash or debit because of that 2 to 3% transaction fee, and they're not allowed to raise their prices to account for that fee. So this is why smaller stores, you might have been to one before, that don't accept credit at all, this would be why. So if these stores have already been not happy with the 2 to 3% fee, why would they be happy with the 4 to 6% fee? And the short answer is obviously that they're not happy about it. But they are doing it for a few different reasons, the number one being sales volume. Even the retailers are going to make less per each buy now, pay later later purchase, it's still a way to incentivize customers to actually go ahead and buy more. So even though they're going to make 4 to 6% less on that purchase, if that purchase wasn't going to exist without the option being available, it's still more money than they would have had otherwise. Now, on top of that, and probably the even bigger reason, is because customers are just demanding it more. The pay later option is becoming more and more popular over time. Obviously, we've seen it a lot more recently. I've been seeing a lot more Instagram ads for it too. So if competitors are offering it and customers are demanding it, other stores have to offer it too, just to stay competitive.
Now, what's the risk for consumers? Like, is there actually a downside for us? Well, the overall answer is yes. You know, it kind of reminds me of all the different payment options, investment accounts, all these other financial tools that are out there that are sold as if they're meant to help people, but really they benefit the upper class and screw over the middle and lower class people. In this case, and from the research that we've been doing, the risk behind BNPL is that they're attracting people who are already struggling financially and people who aren't able to pay their necessary bills. There was a study done that found that 31% of BNPL users indicated that their financial health was either struggling or dire. Okay, if that's not shocking enough, if we look at the last 2 years, almost half of BNPL users made late payments because they either forgot and didn't know that the bill was there, or they actually didn't have the money to actually pay for it once the time came. So on the flip side, if you are a BNPL user who actually does make payments on time and you're on top of it, maybe you set up automatic payments so you don't actually forget and miss it, the downside won't be that great for you, but there is more, so keep listening. For a large percentage of people, and I mean statistically, who will miss their payments, that's when the interest kicks in. The interest you pay on BNPL can add up to being even higher than what you pay on a credit card. And on top of that, you don't have the same warranty coverage that comes with the advantage of actually having a credit card. So another thing to keep in mind with a credit card is that you're actually being reported to the credit bureau, which ultimately makes up your credit score. With a buy now, pay later service, yeah, you make your payments on time, sure, you won't have to pay interest, but at the same time, that information isn't being reported to the credit bureau, so you don't actually get to see the benefit on your credit score. On the other hand, if you don't make your payments on time, you're not only hit with the late fees, but they will actually report this information to the credit bureau, which will obviously negatively impact your credit score. Basically, what they're telling you is that when it comes to your credit score, they're not gonna be there to help you bring it up, but if you're not making your payments or you're making those late payments, you better know that they're gonna be there to help bring that down. Okay, so the last thing that I wanna mention is taking on loans in general, especially when you feel like you have more money to spend because you're paying a small portion now and the rest is coming in later, even though later isn't really that far into the future. Think about it this way, this is for sure going to lead you to overspending. Remember, the only reason that retailers are on board with this anyways, like Steph mentioned before, is because they feel like it'll cause you to spend more money. Realistically, a lot more people are gonna be buying a lot more things than they would if pay later wasn't an option. It's kind of like the psychology of sales. You walk into a store, you weren't gonna buy shoes, but you see that 20% off sign, so you decide to get the shoes anyways because you feel like you're saving money. But keep in mind, you weren't planning on buying them, so you are spending money that you wouldn't have spent before. Same exact thing here.
Okay, now that all of that information has been covered, so what? Overall, the buy now, pay later industry is clearly here and it's clearly here to stay. They're growing super, super quickly, and a lot of them are either partnering up with or being acquired by these really large payment companies. We're seeing Stripe partner up with Klarna, we're seeing Square acquire Afterpay, we're seeing Apple work with PayBright, and if you're in Canada, you may have recently seen Visa partner with Moneris to come up with Visa installments, and so many more. So obviously it's here and it's gonna be an option for a long, long time, but should you be using that option if you're a consumer? Now, Dan and I neither of us have ever used buy now, pay later, other than, of course, like we said before, with phone plans, but it's not something that we've been choosing to use or plan to use in the future for buying things like clothes or just everyday purchases as well. Overall, we don't really recommend it for those day-to-day purchases because, in theory, if those things are in your budget and you can afford them right now, which is normally the goal if you're buying things you don't really need, then it's not a necessity and it's not really providing you that many benefits. One thing I should mention, though, is that if for some reason you really do feel inclined to use it, as long as you are making your payments on time, and remember that a lot of people forget to do so, but as long as you're making those payments on time, it can be relatively harmless. But at the same time, remember that it's not helping you build any credit either. The real dangers are if you're overspending, spending money that you don't even have to spend in the first place, or if you're consistently missing those payments. So even though we don't really use these services or recommend them, we would love to hear your thoughts on this too. Have you used them before? Has it made you overspend any money? Have you ever missed a payment? Let us know all of that in the comments below.
Alright guys, so that's a wrap on this video. We hope that you liked the breakdown of the buy now pay later feature. I know for me, this is definitely something that I've been seeing more and more of and seeing more and more people talk about it. So yeah, if you found it interesting, leave us a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts. Are you using it? Are you going to be using it? As usual, show us some love down below with a like. Make sure you're subscribed right there. And if you haven't seen any of our previous videos, you know what's up. Check them out next door, and we will be back. You know the vibes. Let's go.